Hello everybody and welcome to my channel. My name's Tina and I'm bobbing along nicely. Today I thought I would do a slightly different video in as much as I will be talking in depth about one pattern and one pattern only, and that's the Drafter's Grid dress by Roberts Wood. It's something I've been making for a little while and I'm really pleased with the result. So if you'd like to hear more about it, carry on watching. So I'd seen this pattern on the internet, particularly on Instagram. I'd seen a number of people make it, really admired it, but kept on thinking, it's too complicated. That looks far too difficult. I'm not really at that level yet. But you know, when you see something and you can't get it out of your head, this is the dress I'm talking about. So it's a patchwork dress with a difference, and I'll tell you why. First of all, I'll talk about the pattern itself. It cost me something like £34, so it wasn't an inconsiderable sum. And I did think quite carefully before I bought it. But you know, you keep seeing something and keep thinking about making it and how much you'd like to wear it. And eventually I caved in. What I did do was look very carefully at the measurements, both the garment measurements and the body measurements and the finished garment measurements. And the reason for that is you only buy one size. That becomes fairly apparent. The reasons for that become fairly apparent once you've bought it. But I did think, oh, this is difficult, because if this doesn't fit, I've got nowhere to go. I can't toile it because it's patchwork, but okay, we'll go with the flow. So I looked very carefully. I thought very carefully about my size, finished garment measurements, how much ease I wanted, and I bought my pattern. For this one, I also had the instruction book printed out because there are 65 pages of really good instructions, as well as several sheets of A0 paper. So I bought it, didn't do anything with it. I then went to the Stitch Festival in March and thought I must find some fabric, bought some fabric, brought it home, overlocked it, pre-washed it, put it off. And the reason for that is because I was so worried about making the dress and it not fitting, and it having cost me a lot of money both in fabric and in pattern. But it got to a few weeks ago and I thought, I really can't put this off anymore. I want to wear this dress, or at least try to wear it. So let's get going. I'm so glad I did. First of all, you have to cut out quite a lot of different pattern pieces, but you know, that's easy. That's paper. That's not too difficult, and it's quite daunting to start with. But what I found is that it became obvious why it was so complicated looking when you look at the pattern. It's patchwork, but it's not squares. Each piece is shaped, so the whole dress, the shape of the dress actually comes from the shape of the patchwork pieces. There are no darts. So, you know, imagine if you were making a patchwork dress from squared patchwork, you'd put a dart in, you'd immediately change the shape of those pieces and change the patchwork. This dress is completely engineered through the use of the shapes. It's very clever. But then when you understand that, you'll understand why you can't buy multi-size patterns, because you'd have hundreds of pieces as opposed to the quite a lot that there are anyway. So I settled down, I cut out the pattern pieces from the paper, I pre-washed ironed my fabric, and I started cutting them all out. Now at this point you'll see I have a lot of pieces cut and it looks really complicated until you realise that they're all so clearly labelled. So for example, this one is skirt 1B, SK 1B. That is SK skirt 1A. So they're all logically numbered and lettered, and it becomes very clear very early on that this is going to be a very straightforward make in terms of the organisation. So I'll try and show you some of the instructions. They are incredibly clear. They tell you in which order to put things, and then to attach. So you start working your way across, and then you will join those strips to each other. It makes so much sense. For a nerd like me, it was brilliant. The seam allowance is 1 centimetre, which for me was a joy because I have done patchwork in the past where it's 6 millimetres. That's really tricky. 1 centimetre is much easier to measure on, particularly on my sewing machine. So I was able to make sure it was quite accurate. I will caveat that by saying I was using quite stable quilting cotton. I didn't choose any fancy fabrics for this dress to start with because I thought I'd try and make life a little bit easier for myself. So actually, once I had cut all the pattern pieces out, I was then able to separate them out into front bodice, back bodice, left sleeve, right sleeve, front skirt, back skirt. Immediately it becomes less daunting because you're only working on one piece at a time. I think I started with the front bodice, whatever it said in the instructions. So immediately you just have to worry about this bit. You start with a strip, you make another strip, you join the two together, and it's taking the time to line up those seams, which if it works is incredibly satisfying. I think I surprised myself because I really, really enjoyed the construction of it. So actually it was quite quick. I thought this was going to take me weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks, and it didn't. The pieces came together really quickly, and I was confident because the instructions were so well written that the pieces would be in the right place. There was no way of getting it wrong. I did worry about getting things upside down, so I'll pop a picture up here. I hope you can see it. What I did was just use a little bit of masking tape on the top of some pieces to note the top, because they're very clearly notated on the pattern pieces, but obviously you need to make sure you don't turn those upside down when they're on your table or when you're moving them around. So I did use just something to annotate the top as a masking tape because it's cheaper, there's lots of it, until I got those pieces put together. I chose to top stitch the finish. There are two finishes available or suggested. One is to overlock the seams and the other one is to top stitch. Now I chose to top stitch them because I thought that it would produce a really nice finish. I think if I make the dress again, I will probably overlock because it does leave you with raw edges on the inside. Now, I know that these aren't going to come apart because of the top stitching, but I like a neater finish on the inside. So I think next time I would probably use the overlocker, and that would make construction quicker because actually a lot of the time spent in the construction of this dress was the top stitching. Because I changed colour so that I had all the different colours. So one colour for that, one colour for that, one colour for the main fabric. But as I say, it went together beautifully. I put an invisible zip in down here, and I was really pleased with the way it lined up. Now I did use something that the bag makers use for my zip, and that's this stuff. It's wash away quilter's tape. Now it's only about 6 millimeters wide. It clues in the name, it washes away, but I actually use that to attach my zip to the fabric before I basted it because I find it lies flatter than using clips or pins. And then I used my invisible zip foot to put the zip in. And I was really pleased because it gave me the ability to line those patchwork pieces up really neatly. And I say I'm really pleased with the result because it's lined up. The only other tricky part I found was attaching the sleeve to the bodice. Not because it doesn't fit, but purely from the point of view of lining up those squares again. But again, I took my time and it's worked out really well. So that's my first version. They also very kindly provide you with lots of other styling ideas. They try not to obviously show you everything, but they give you ideas of different lengths, sleeve lengths, doing it as separates, skirts and tops, as opposed to a single dress. They even provide some colouring sheets, so you could plan. I've seen some amazing rainbow versions of this dress. So you could actually use that to colour in and plan your dress and know what all the pattern pieces are before you even start cutting. So all in all, a very, very satisfying sew. I didn't like the height of the neck on me, so I have just lowered that. I think I lowered that by about 4 centimetres just to make it a little bit more comfortable, because I prefer a slightly lower neck here. But other than that, a really, really satisfying project. And do you know what? I reckon anybody who can use a sewing machine and has a bit of space to lay out those pieces, they could make this dress. I think if you had to pack your stuff away every night, it would make it a bit more complicated. If you have the luxury of a dedicated space, as I do, then obviously that makes life a bit easier. But honestly, you don't need to be a really, really competent dressmaker. You just need to be systematic. And as I surprised myself with how much I enjoyed the construction process, not just being able to wear the dress at the end of it. I am going to be wearing it this weekend to a social function, so I should be swishing about in it quite well. So yeah, all in all, highly recommended. As I say, my only caveats would be check your sizing carefully, because you can't size up or down. Would I make it again? Absolutely, in a heartbeat. I've already thought of some different colour ideas. I'd quite like to make one for the festive season, although it won't be overtly Christmassy colours. I think it would make a really, really nice party dress. So that's my drafters grid. What am I wearing today? I'm wearing a slightly badly ironed top, actually. This is the Stylark Gem Tee. I like it because it's a slightly longer length with a curved hem, and the fabric I got from a D-stash. I'm also thinking this isn't sitting very nicely, so I might just top stitch that. But yeah, so if you've got any ideas as to other patterns that I've made that you'd like to hear more about, feel free to go and have a look over on my Instagram to look at the kind of things I've made so far. I'm thinking what I might do for my next video is the 20 questions, but it could be with a twist. Have you got any questions you'd like to ask me? If you want to pop comments below, I will certainly have a look at answering those for you. But for now, thank you for watching, and I'll see you all again soon. Bye-bye.